Good morning. Welcome to the Fierce and Fabulous Duo. My name is Sandra Catena, and I'm here with my co host, Dr. Toni. Today's special guest is Julia Baumgarten Foster. And before we bring Julia on, I want to tell you a real New York City story. I knew Julia's mom. It was about 7.5 years ago, and it was right after I had a devastating accident. And I was going to doctors, physical therapists, MRI, having MRIs and X-rays every single day, and it was not. It was a challenging time in my life, and I had left my PT appointment, and I was on a New York City subway, and this lovely woman sat next to me. She looked to be about 72. She was very pretty. She was extremely well dressed, and we immediately started talking. And 15 minutes later, we were best friends. We exchanged phone numbers, and we stayed friends until the end of Sylvia's life. And when Sylvia sat next to me, she looked to be about 72, but in fact, she was already in her early to middle 80s, and she worked until she was 86. And Toni, you and I could do a whole thing on Sylvia Baumgarten. She was so much fun, so intelligent, so inspiring. She was a gourmet cook and a baker. She loved her family. She had four kids. She was a published author, historical fiction, and you can buy her books, and we'll give all that information. She was also a live wire. She had two loaded guns. She was funny and smart, and I loved that lady. We were such good friends. And she worked until she was 86, which is inspiring because she loved her job. And that's how I met Julia. So, on that note, welcome, Julia.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here.
Just a few things about you. You're a lifelong artist, professional dancer, and singer who performed throughout the United States in musical theater. You later worked as a fundraiser and director or vice president of development at several companies. In, two, in 2024, you started your own business. So we're going to kick off right now with Toni.
Yes, thank you so much, Sandra. We're delighted to talk with you today, Julia. Thank you so much for sharing some of your story with us.
Sure
And
thing.
so you started training in dance as a child, and you have a vast background in both dance and singing. So we'd like to hear a little bit about your career in the arts.
Again, thank you both for having me here with you today. I'm so excited. And I started performing. I mean, I was one of those kids always just dancing and singing around the living room. My family was very musical. My mother played piano and sang. My father sings. My siblings play instruments and sing. So we definitely have that gene. And so I was around it, started dancing formally when I was about 8, and then mostly ballet. Continued on into high school where I was part of a dance company in high school doing mostly ballet and jazz, but decided I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I started college pre-med, but that's also where I discovered modern dance. And it was during my college years that I made the switch from pre-med to a dance major. I'm sure my parents were super thrilled about that choice. Um, then ended up going back to New York City, where I'm from, after college and pursuing my dance career. So I danced with the Eric Hawkins Dance Company for 6 years in New York, as well as doing musical theater, sang with choirs, and then did some musical theater out of town and on the road, and had that experience as well.
Wonderful. And you made another change later on. You transitioned into the world of fundraising. You held positions as vice president. So, can you tell us a little bit about what it was like moving into the corporate world after having been a performer for many years?
Sure. So I had always dabbled in the corporate world. During my teen years, I at the foot of my father's secretaries, as they were called back in the day, learned how to word process in the early days of IBM word processing. So I always had some exposure in that world. And during my dance years, I like to say I always needed to have a job to support my dance habit because dancing was never enough to actually live off of in New York City, even working with a great company. So I did do a lot of corporate work, but mostly as a temp in big law firms and investment companies because I could type over 100 words a minute and knew all the word processing programs. So it was a great gig. Um, Long story short, ended up through temping working at a hospital for 4 years and found myself in a job there in their continuing medical education realm, which was effectively event planning, and discovered I had a thing for event planning and loved it and the organizational skills, which eventually led into a job in medical sales, doing surgical equipment sales. So I was traveling all over the state of New Jersey selling equipment for mostly facial type surgeries, which was super exciting. Kind of went back to my pre-med days. So I got to be in operating rooms and watch surgeries. It was very cool. And then my husband and I left New York in 2003 and went to Colorado. And it was there that I was doing some event work and didn't love what I was doing there. And somebody put the dots together and said, "You've been in the arts, you've done event planning, you've done sales. Have you thought about fundraising for the arts?" And so I was able to informational interview with somebody at the big organization in town and eventually got a job there. So my first job was with the Vail Valley Foundation, which runs the Villar Center for the Arts in Beaver Creek and the Vail International Dance Festival. So it was a perfect marriage of my passion for the arts, but also learning this new skill of fundraising and learning how to bring people to the table to support what we were doing and as well as planning their big gala. So they had their big 500-person gala that I was tasked with running with auction items and all of that stuff. So it was exciting. And then I don't know if you want me to continue on the journey of fundraising, but
Sure, sure. Share
yeah.
with us. It
So,
sounds like you've had a lot of fun, aside from being a dancer, planning parties, and your organizational skills really came handy there. So if
yeah,
there's anything else about that
yeah,
transition, because I think those transitions can be difficult.
for sure.
We have enough life transitions that we don't have a choice, right? We have to go through them, and then job related kind of adds on top of any life transitions already. So.
That's so
Um,
true.
yeah, I'm curious
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so well we had a great 5 seasons in Colorado, and again this was up in the ski area in the mountains. So I did learn how to ski. I had never skied being a dancer, so it was quite an experience to be 35 years old and on the bunny hill with the little 4-year-olds flying by you and thinking, I can't do this. But I did learn, and by 5 seasons in, I could successfully do a black diamond run. It was very exciting to get to that level. In any event, after 5 years in a mountain town, it was, it's lovely, but it is very small town. And there are limits to what you can do professionally, educationally, personally, that my husband and I had kind of hit our limits there. We had also by that point adopted our son. So he's was born in South Korea. And so he came home to us in our last year in Colorado. And, we recognized that diversity was another issue that we were not getting in a mountain town in Colorado. So we knew we needed to, not just needed, wanted to move to some other locale. And so I started looking at fundraising jobs. And I'd always had a thing for Southern California. I mean, I look back and think about as a child watching the Rose Parade on New Year's Day and always thinking, ooh, it's sunny and beautiful there, Pasadena. So, and then when I toured with musical theater, I just really, that was it. Everything about mid-state down, San Luis Obispo South, I was like, someday I'm going to be there. So I actually got a fundraising job in Orange County. And so that's what brought us to Southern California. And I started working at what was then Orange County Performing Arts Center, now known as Segerstrom Center for the Arts. It's an enormous performing arts center. Their large Broadway hall is 3,200 seats. They have a concert hall that's about 2,200 seats, another black box theater. I mean, it's a really big complex. and beautiful venues. And I just was really lucky to get a job from out of town. And so that's what brought us here. And was there on and off for 10 years. I had two different stints there. But eventually, when I left there, I was the vice president of development. So I was running the team there. We were raising over $10 million a year. And
Wow.
it was quite an exciting place to be. And then I was recruited by La Jolla Playhouse to come to no, I was already in Southern California, to come to San Diego to run their development department. And that's what brought us to San Diego. So, yeah, yeah.
Julia, you've got such a rich background, and it's so diverse. And I just love the fact that you were a professional dancer, and also dancers don't ski.
No, no, we
We
don't.
don't ski.
No, no, it was quite an adventure.
Oh yeah, we're very athletic and we love all kinds of dance and martial arts and but when it comes to skiing, we can't afford to break anything. So
No, no. And so it was something that, yeah, I wasn't going to do until I was pretty sure my professional dance career was in the rearview mirror. But I did enjoy it, and I took to
yeah,
it fairly quickly, all things considered. And I
of
think
course.
my dance background certainly helped with the balance and the navigating the ski
Oh
slope,
yes.
and eventually got comfortable even doing moguls, and which I never thought I would want to do, and actually enjoyed kind of going over the bumps. It was fun. So
God.
that said, I have not skied in the well, it's about almost 20 years since we left Colorado, and I have not skied since. So I don't think it was,
Wow.
I enjoyed it for 5 years, and I'm good.
Well, when your mom eventually moved out to San Diego,
Mhm.
she loved spending time with you. And she especially loved going to the La Jolla Playhouse to see different plays on Saturday nights.
You did.
And sadly, you lost your mother about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And in 2024, you suffered a lot of losses, but the loss of your mom, your father-in-law, you had a health scare. Both you and your husband lost your jobs. And as you moved forward, you were inspired by your mother to start a business. She was your inspiration because she had such a diverse life and she worked so long and loved it.
Yeah.
Many women in midlife suffer similar losses. You've reinvented your life. So tell us about your new profession and how you chose to go in that direction.
Sure. Well, I actually will jump on the mom story first, because the
Yes.
the backstory there that really inspired me, and has inspired me ever since the moment it happened, was my parents divorced when they were in their 60s. She was of a generation that never worked outside the home, although she had
Mhm.
been a novelist, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
But she had never worked outside the home. And here she was in her 60s. There was no money to be had. She had to completely start all over again. And pardon me. Um, and she had to really reinvent her life. Um, and with that, she learned how to rent an apartment. I mean, even that was sort of, how do I do this? How do I rent an apartment?
Mhm.
How do I get a job? And I got her into proofreading because I had been temping at all those law firms, and they had lots of proofreaders. And I said, Mom, you're a writer, you're natural. You can do this in your sleep. So
Mhm.
got her into my temp agency, and she started proofreading also at big investment companies. I think mostly Morgan Stanley was where she was. She also was kind of a night owl. So she loved doing second shift and even third shift sometimes, which I don't know how she could do the overnight shift, but she loved it. In any event, we were shopping for my wedding dress. We went to a David's Bridal in Queens, and it was kind of a trek from her part of Queens to that David's Bridal. And if you're not familiar with David's Bridal, they have a communal dressing room. So it's just one giant room, lots of women trying on dresses. And if you knew anything about my mother, you would know she was not shy. And she also loved clothes. She adored clothes. She used to sew her own clothes back in the day.
Mhm.
So she always had an eye for fabric, fashion. I think, at one point thought she'd be a fashion designer. So here we are in this communal dressing room. I had an idea of what I wanted. We had pulled some dresses for me to try, and there was no sales help anywhere. And she starts looking at all these other women and says, with the color of your hair and you've got this long neck. And I saw this dress while I was looking for my daughter. And, I think I'll just go grab it for you. And next thing I know, mom is scurrying around the David's bridal, pulling dresses for other women, handing it. And I'm like, okay, mom, yeah, hello. But to her credit, it was amazing. I mean, she was helping all these other women just because. I mean, it was just, that was mom. By the time we finally had picked my dress and finally a manager shows up there again, I don't know that we ever saw a salesperson. And the manager takes one look at my mom and says, "Do you want a job?" And mom looks at me and she kind of was like, "I don't know. What do you think?" And I said, "I don't know, mom. Like, I mean, I know you're doing the temp work, but it's not the be all end all." Um, and she had every reason to say no. She had every reason to say, "This is not for me." That, and if you knew my mother, navigating in any direction is not her forte. So even the idea that she'd have to learn some new subway path to get from home to this location, let alone she'd never worked in retail. She was not particularly computer savvy, and she would have had to have learned the computer point of sale systems, all of it, all of it. But she just looked at me and she's like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh,
So we grabbed an application from the manager. They were going to just do a little work on my dress that was only going to take an hour. We go next door to the pizza shop to have pizza. Also, not my mom's favorite food. I just have to qualify that, but she had some anyway. And filled out the application and handed it in when we picked up my dress, and she got the job. And that's how her wedding dress sales career started, because she was comfortable talking to strangers and brave enough to say yes to an opportunity that was handed to her on a platter, even though she could have said no. Eventually, she did apply for a job at Macy's when they opened up a brand new bridal salon. I think she was right around 70 when that happened. I mean, it's never too late, right? So
never.
at about 70, she started her second bridal salon career at Macy's, which would have meant a whole new subway system pattern to learn and a whole new point of sale to learn. And that particular shop was a union shop. So she navigated becoming a union member, and mom being mom became the shop steward for the union. So she was the liaison between all the employees and the union. So never too late to learn. And so that, going back to my journey, that has been an inspiration to me ever since her 60s and early 70s of it is never too late to reinvent your life, to find a whole new life, and to find joy. I mean, she loved what she did. She talked
Yeah.
about my brides. She had brides all over not just all over the country, but all over the world, because people would come to Macy's from all over the world. She was invited to many weddings, a few she went to. She has brides right here in San Diego. So when she moved out here, she had built-in friends. I mean, people who were, gosh, 40 years or 40, 50 probably years her junior, but they were her brides and her friends.
Yeah.
So in 2024, I found myself going through this journey. I was caregiving for mom and then lost her at the beginning of 2024. Parted ways with my job at the same time because I think the stress of caregiving really was challenging to maintain what I was doing at the level I had been doing it. As you mentioned, lost my father-in-law. Mother-in-law had to go in for extra care, so we cleaned out two households in the course of 1 year. Plus, then my husband also losing his job, and then I went through a breast cancer scare and ended up having to have a lumpectomy. Thankfully, it was benign. Um, but I had never actually had surgery, which I'm very blessed that I made it to my late 50s without ever having surgery. So even that was a little scary to just face having
Mhm.
to have anesthesia and all of that. So, um, in any event, I started this business really first inspired by mom. I started it in the first half of 24, when only part of that journey had happened, with that inspiration of I want to bring that idea to other women that we can be brave. I see a lot of women in midlife in their 50s, 60s, 70s who go through these crises of job loss, divorce, health scares, empty nest, what have you, who are shrinking back, who decide, I'm too old, it's too late, there's nothing more, I can't do this, I don't have the skills, I'm not brave enough, all of those things that we tell ourselves. And I recognized that through my mom, no, it doesn't have to be that way. So I started on this journey to create this course about really going from setback to comeback, about how we can learn to talk to strangers if we're not comfortable with that in a natural way, learn to network, not just a sort of business networking, but a real true connecting with people, kind of like you,
Mhm.
Sandra, that connection that she had with you on the subway, that it
Yes.
doesn't take long to go from a stranger and a quick sort of small talk, if you will, to a deeper connection that can last. And then
Yeah.
being open to seeing opportunity. I think a lot of us are handed opportunities, but we don't see it or we're too afraid to grasp for the ring when it's right there in front of us and to
Mhm.
say, you know what, it's okay. And the last piece of that is also the thought of envisioning where you want to be. You do still have to do that work. And so in my journey, when I was in the spring of 2024, I was really looking at where do I want to be? I knew that the fundraising in the capacity I had been in had burned me out in a very difficult way, given the pressures of caregiving. And also, I should mention mom, wife, all of those things, pet mom to two dogs and two cats. Um, and so I really started doing that work of where do I want to be? What's my next phase and what's important to bring back to my life? I recognized I'd missed a lot of my son's life in the first, at that point, almost 18 years of his life, that I had made choices and I don't like to live in a world of regret, but I missed a lot. There were things, there were recitals that there was no way I was going to make it because there was some show, an event around the show, and I had to be there. So I was very clear going into the fall of 2024, as one example, that I was not going to miss a single one of his football games. It was senior year of high school. He's on the varsity team. I will be at every Friday night game. We're talking maybe 10 or 12 Fridays. It's not really that heavy a lift, but when you've worked in the arts where there's this expectation of nights and weekends forever, it was a big shift and it was a big line in the sand. And I know there had been some jobs I was looking at that spring in the arts still that I didn't get. And I think that was part of the reason because I was very clear. I'm taking these 10 Friday nights. Unless there's something massive, this is it. So I know I lost opportunity because of that choice, but I'm okay with that. And I started to envision what was important to me was that family time. And more importantly, getting myself back to dancing and singing and
Mhm.
movement because I had let a lot of that go in recent years. So that really was part of that visioning. When I got to building the course, and then I did start also consulting with other organizations. So I did consult and have been consulting with arts organizations on their fundraising. But this idea of this midlife women finding this next phase was really happening to me in real time. That I was going through this process of the grief, of the losses, the challenges of estates and closing up houses and the health scares and the you're postmenopausal and you don't even feel comfortable in your own skin. Who am I? All of those things were very real. And so funny enough through this journey, I still had to do the footwork. You can't just sit there and go, okay, I'm waiting for for something to drop from heaven. So I decided to get group fitness instruction certified so that I knew that I could teach some type of movement in maybe a gym setting, what have you. And thinking maybe I would get Zumba certified, but I wasn't sure. I just kind of said, let me just get certified to do this so that I have that knowledge of how to teach a class and safely in the modern era and the modern ideals of how do we teach movement to people. And then this past spring, I found myself at a friend's house, met a stranger, somebody who is at my friend's house, get to talking with her. She finds out about my dance background and says, oh, you were a dancer. Do you tap? Yeah, I can tap. Could you teach tap?
Huh.
So here it is again, that moment of choice of honestly, I've taught dance but never tap. Tap was the last of all the dance forms I ever came to. So I am no Gregory Hines by any stretch. Um, but here was this opportunity laid before me. Could you teach tap? Sure. Because I'd done the footwork and gotten the certification to teach group fitness. I knew that teaching some type of movement was in my future. And somebody's putting this right in front of me. She'd already gathered a group of ladies who were interested in doing this. She was already working on space where we could have the class. Why would I say no? So I have been teaching tap dance since the summer, and it's just been such a joy to teach this group. It is primarily women in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. So it is exactly this group of ladies who are finding joy in something that they haven't done either ever or since they were about five. But it was really sort of the proof in that same journey of how do you go from where I am to where I want to be and take these steps of talk to the stranger, do the
Mhm.
networking, see the opportunity, and then why not? Okay, say yes. If it's aligned with your vision, which hopefully you've done the work and you know what that is, here it is. Say yes.
I
Wow, that's
love that story,
beautiful.
Julia. I love it. And
Yeah.
once a dancer, always a dancer. The desire to dance remains with us till the end. And I would
Very
like to
true.
mention you performed on stage with Barishnikov.
That is true. That is true. So the Eric Hawkins Dance Company, this was after Eric had passed away. So it was a couple of years later. And somebody had a connection to Baryshnikov and invited him to perform in our opening night at the Joyce Theater in New York City. So he took on actually what was one of Eric Hawkins' sort of signature roles in one of the dances. And that was it. We were all a part of that dance. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was quite an extraordinary thing. And it what's funny is he was so gracious and so humble and recognizing that modern he was making this transition into modern in that era. This was in the 90s and he was starting to work with White Oak Dance Project and Mark Morris, and so he was making these transitions. But here's this great ballet dancer, and he would very respectfully look at all of us. Could we try that again?
Oh,
Sure, break my heart. We're gonna have to rehearse it one more time. Darn.
ah,
But the other interesting thing about that whole journey was when I was a little girl, and my mother loved telling this story, my mom and I used to go to see ballet when I was little. So we'd go all over the city seeing ballets together. It was our thing. And we did get to see Baryshnikov in the 70s performing I guess it was, gosh, what was it? Giselle, I think, with Kelsey Kirkland.
oh.
And yeah, I mean, incredible. And of course, I was a little girl, totally enamored and in love with this incredibly wonderful Russian ballet dancer. So I wrote to him. According to my mom, I didn't get any reply. And so at a certain point, apparently, I wish she had saved this letter because she did save other things. Apparently, I wrote to him again and kind of chastised him and said something along the lines of, "Didn't your mother teach you to have any manners? And
Oh
you should write
gosh.
back to me." But I did get an autographed headshot, did eventually come back in the mail for me, which I do still have. I still have the autographed Baryshnikov headshot. I mean, the autograph is so faded after all these years. But all that to say, when I shifted away from ballet in my college years, which was a combination of reasons, partially because I grew very tall. I mean, I'm 5'8" without point shoes. So the idea of being a prima ballerina when you're that
Mhm.
tall is hard, let alone I refused to not eat. I like food. And I was never going to be skinny enough, which is crazy to think about how skinny I was and that I still wasn't skinny enough.
Yeah.
But I knew that about myself, that I thankfully was not interested in having an eating disorder and but
Mhm.
therefore was not going to be competitive in this ballet world. So when I moved into modern, which has a much broader range of body types and sizes and shapes and is much more forgiving in that realm, I never would have thought that I would have been dancing with Baryshnikov. So it's funny how the world circles that he ended up moving more into modern dance, that he ended up with this company. And that night after that opening night, my mom comes running backstage, tears just streaming down her face.
Oh.
Oh my God, you've waited 20 years for this. I mean, she was just so emotional about the whole thing. But it really is that recognition of we don't know what the future holds.
Right.
It's just very interesting that we love to think
Yeah.
about the future and think that we know what it's going to be, but that path can be different. And yet sometimes, funny enough, that path brought me back to a place that I envisioned 20 years earlier, which is, oh my gosh, here's Baryshnikov, this incredible dancer that I'd love to dance with
Oh,
someday.
wow.
Yeah.
I love him. He's
Oh,
just so exciting and powerful.
well, and what I love about him, and he's a great example of somebody who has continued to shift his life in
Hmm.
in micro ways to keep being on top of his game.
Right.
I made the mistake when I was in college of seeing Nureyev. He was touring with the stars of the Paris Opera Ballet.
You
I
saw Norians?
I saw Nureyev, but honestly, I wish I hadn't
Oh.
because he was very old at that point, and he was touring with these 20 some odd year old young stars of the Paris Opera Ballet who had all the vigor and jumps and turns and had just that level of ability. And here is Nureyev, who just looked old and
Mm.
tired and no energy, trying to be what he just couldn't be anymore. You're not 25. You're not going to look
Right.
good next, right? And then I look at Baryshnikov, who at a certain point just kind of stopped doing as much ballet. He moved into modern dance and
Yeah.
started morphing into that, where he could still embody a physicality and still have that incredible presence on stage, but not trying to do the tricks of a 25-year-old ballet star on the stage.
Sure.
And then he moved into stage work. So he did
Mhm.
Metamorphosis on Broadway, which was such an incredible physical role, but not a ballet dancer's role. And then started doing
Mhm.
even more theater. And I was very lucky to see him in a few things up in LA in the last few years. One, and I can't remember the name of it, but one was a play that he did that actually was in Russian and French primarily.
Mhm.
And to see him do a play in his native tongue, because most
Oh,
of what we've
wow.
seen, I mean, he did was Sex in the City and things where he was in, and movies, White Nights, where he was speaking in English, which is not
Yeah.
his native tongue. And to see him do something in Russian was really extraordinary to just see a
Mm.
different level of ease. But I love that he keeps just moving into new things that he can learn, excel, and not be compared to what was.
Right.
And that's a big lesson for me. It's why I'm not trying to be a ballerina or even a modern dancer in the same
Mhm.
capacity anymore, because I don't want to compare myself to what I was and can't be anymore. That's why the
Right.
tap is so joyous, because it's not something that I was ever the best of the best at tap. So what I am now is great. It's enough. So,
That's
yeah.
so beautiful, Julia. You've continued to evolve and you've had these opportunities and you've had the wisdom to know when to jump and take these opportunities.
Yeah.
It's just such a
Yeah.
beautiful story. And I also see how you are your mother's daughter, because your mother helped women in a different way, but she helped them be beautiful brides, and that's, I
Right.
mean, that's very special. And now you have created this coaching business to
Yeah.
also help women. So, what is it like coaching women, and what are the results that you're working towards with your
Yeah.
clients?
So, I mean, what it's like is just, again, it's exciting, it's joyous. I love seeing the wheels turning for somebody where what I love about coaching is you're just a mirror. I'm not somebody to come in and go, okay, we're going to completely change your life and here's how I envision it. It's really being that mirror. It's holding up that mirror and saying, let's talk about what you see in the mirror. And maybe I can shift that reflection if it's not accurate, because sometimes we don't see ourselves accurately, but I'm not trying to change it. I'm just trying to help you maybe see the shift that you don't see for yourself. And I love that moment when somebody just goes, and they see that shift for themselves that they don't believe. And I think it's the limiting beliefs that we hold
Mhm.
that I think hold so many of us back. I was chatting with somebody recently, and she's, in her late 60s, at a point of job transition, and really in this moment of, I just don't know that I can learn a new thing again, right? That belief that we just can't learn new skills, learn new systems. I'm afraid I'm losing my memory. I'm getting older. And I just keep coming back to my mom. And I just
Mhm.
think, you know what? Yeah, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's true because she kept learning new things. I mean, she started her blog in her 80s.
Yeah.
Now, yes, she had been a writer, but even the capacity to how do I use this blog site and upload and right? I mean, she never stopped growing. When she got to the community here, the senior community that she was living in here in San Diego, she started writing for the newsletter, of course, that
Mhm.
included interviewing people. So she was always meeting new residents. She became fast friends with the chef at the place because she had ideas about what he should or shouldn't be cooking and started a whole rapport with him and bringing him recipes. And I think they even started a whole cooking portion of the newsletter. She started teaching a class to other people about how to write.
Yeah.
So teaching other residents how to write. This is in her late 80s. She
So
never
amazing.
stopped. She never stopped.
So-
And the thing that I really, when it comes to that piece, the sort of learning new things piece, I've really been ruminating a lot about this. And it's something I've thought about because in teaching tap dance to people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and what we think our capacity for learning is. And I recognize that sometimes the ladies in my class get frustrated because they're not picking it up as quickly as they want to. Their little 5-year-old grandchild is tapping all around and they are not there. And the thing I remind them, I say, yes, but your 5-year-old grandchild, that's all they're doing all day. They're brushing their teeth and they're tapping. They're getting ready for school and they're tapping. They're waiting for the bus and they're tapping. They're probably getting yelled at by a teacher or a parent because they're tapping when they should be doing something else. They're at recess and they're tapping. They're doing this and they're obsessing about it. And those first 20 years of life, our whole purpose is just to absorb knowledge. Life isn't throwing us, you've got to rent a place, have a car, get a
Mhm.
job, need insurance, health issues, parents are dying, you have kids to worry about. I mean, 1,001 things that are on our brains. And I think we don't give ourselves enough grace as we get older to recognize our brains are just chock full of a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on in there. And even if I could devote 8 hours a day to learning something new, I'm still going to be sitting at my computer thinking, oh, but my kid needs this, or my parent needs
Mhm.
that, or the dog is barking, or my health is ailing, or whatever. So I think we don't give ourselves enough grace to say it's okay that it takes longer. It's okay that we might get a little frustrated because we don't have the time and space to obsess in the way that we could as children
Mhm.
in those first 20 years. But I absolutely think we can obsess in those micro doses. And I myself, in the last 2 years on this journey of building my business, I learned how to navigate a new computer system. I built my entire website all by myself on
Oh.
that system. I decided this fall that I was going to embrace AI and learned how to spin off a chat GPT clone that's like my business partner. So I can shoot ideas at my chat clone and it helps me refine, no, this is better, or this is more in your coaching voice. Um, so embracing what that can do for me as a tool and obviously teaching the tap dance class, getting group fitness certified. I had to learn and study and take an exam to do that. It's possible. You just have to give yourself grace that you're not going to have the time and space, but it doesn't mean you don't have the capacity. And so that's one of those things when I'm working with people that I see that shift in just reminding them of those things when they start to go, oh, yeah, you're right. I've got a lot of life and a lot of things in my brain. And why should I expect that I can absorb and learn something new in the same way that I did
Mhm.
when I was a kid? But I think it's also mindset. It's that limiting belief around that. I've heard from a colleague, I started a new job also this year. So on top of my business, I have a sort of day job in fundraising that I love. And and that's also required me to learn new systems, new computer systems, new processes, et cetera. And but when I hear colleagues, people in their 40s and 30s say, "Oh, I don't want to learn one more computer system,
Mhm.
one new thing when we're going to bring in another new system." And I just think, don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself like that. Instead, say, okay, great, I'm excited. Let me dive in. And we brought another computer system on recently, and so I just started doing. There's always videos. You can find videos either through the system usually has help videos, or just Google, and you'll find usually videos of people explaining whether it's Excel, Outlook, Chat GPT. I mean, the Chat GPT clone. I learned how to clone it because I watched some videos. So it's all out there for the taking, and we just have to get past
Hmm.
that limiting belief that we can't or we don't feel like it, we don't want to, because it's there for us.
Wow, thank you. I love your approach of almost like a radical self-acceptance. I can see how you create this safe space for women and they can really benefit from working with you. So can you
Yeah.
give us some information for any women who would like to reach out to you about how they can purchase your course and your website, your contact information?
Sure. So the best bet is, of course, my website. It's fosterinnovationgroup.com. And there are links there to my coaching, my arts consulting, the coursework, which the course is called From Setback to Comeback. So it is a 9-week journey of learning how to really go from the fear and that moment of crisis through all those steps of talking to strangers, networking, envisioning that future, and how do you see and say yes to opportunity. So it's a 9-week journey through all of that. But all of that is available at my website. And you're also welcome to find me. I am on Facebook as Julia Baumgarten Foster, and I'm on Instagram as First Julia Dance. So I am on those platforms if you want to seek me out there as well and follow what I'm posting.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, Julia, so much for being on our podcast today. We wish you success in your business and all your new endeavors and all your future endeavors because you continue to evolve. That's something I've learned about you today. So please keep us updated. We'd love to have you back and learn about the wonderful things you're doing in the future as well. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to be here with both of you today. So thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Julia. It was a wonderful interview, so inspiring, especially for women of a certain age. And everything you said hit home for me. I'm 67, so
Mhm.
here I am starting a whole new venture in different areas of my life. So thank you
Mhm.
for being so open and transparent. You're absolutely terrific. I really appreciated
Thank
you
you.
coming on with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.